Codependency, that's a buzzword in psychology, how to break codependency habits. Today at Live on Purpose TV. Codependent? Where did you hear that word? It probably came up in the context of a relationship, I'm guessing. I first heard that word probably 2 decades ago when I was reading a book called Codependent No More by Melody Beatty. And I was interested in it because I was running some groups at the time with people who were going through some addictions. So let me give you the context around the word codependent, or the context of codependency, and then we'll talk about some things we can do about it. The concept of codependency arose from the context of addiction and working with people who were dealing with addictions. Alcoholism, for example, is a great example of where codependency came from. The person who is struggling with the addiction has a way of enrolling or recruiting or inviting people into their world who will take care of them. And this makes sense, right? Because you need to have your needs met, but if you're dealing with an addiction or some other kind of chronic disability or health concern, it's a little hard to meet those needs by yourself. It's a whole lot easier to get somebody else to do that for you. So what if I could get somebody to provide me with money, for example, and I get to still have my addiction, but I get money from this source so I don't have to go work. All right, now that's a little bit of an extreme example, but what if it's housing, a place to live? I can always have a place to live. I don't have to be responsible for that because this person's gonna provide it for me. Are you getting a sense? Now, codependent refers to this dynamic. And in a codependent relationship, the person who is helping becomes dependent on the addicted or disabled person to provide them with an opportunity to serve. Does that sound a little crazy? But it can actually be a dependent relationship on this side too, where it's so important for this person to be the hero, or to be the rescuer, or to be the person who is providing that necessary resource or support for this poor helpless person over here who can't do it for themselves. Now, it gives them a sense of importance or worth to do that. And don't get me wrong, I mean, service is an important concept. We're going to talk about that in other videos as to how it supports your mental health. It's huge. I'm a big fan. The problem with codependency is that it becomes a dependency. In other words, I've got to be in this relationship to feel important. When that continues for a while, so you've got the addict or the chronic illness over here, and the provider of support and services over here, and they link up in a way that they cannot separate. So it starts to feel trapped, and the more tight that grip becomes, the harder it is to escape it. And that's the problem. And it becomes a dysfunctional relationship. And not only that, but the support provided by this person over here allows this person over here to continue or perpetuate that negative or addictive behavior. We call that enabling. Maybe you've run into that term before too. So there's a dilemma that we come up against as parents, or as people who have loved ones who are in an addiction, or someone in our family or in our household who's in that position, because we want to balance our love and caring for them with not getting into that codependent relationship where we actually enable their behavior and allow it to continue. So this is why people want to break that pattern sometimes. Well, how do you do that? You know what? I think it starts with our belief. Oh, that's gonna surprise you, because I'm always coming back to paradigm and belief, right? Starting from that place, what do you really believe about this person and their resourcefulness? I have to tell you a story about April. April was this young teenage girl who was in a group that I was running probably 15 years ago. She and her family were referred to the group by the court. And this is when I was doing some services for court-referred youth. Anyway, we were running a group where there were advancements available. And she shows up, huffing and puffing. She's about 10 minutes late to group, okay? And she bursts through the door and she comes in and kind of disrupts what's going on in the group. And her mom kind of straggles in behind her. Well, she raises her hand a few minutes later and says, "Oh, I want to apply for the advancement." Okay, pause. One of the requirements for obtaining the advancement is to be on time for every group session for a certain period of time. She was late today. She was late the week before too. But she's applying for the advancement, okay? We start to entertain her request. "Tell us about what you've done to do this." And the group is all on board. They're like, "Oh yeah, I think she deserves it." And then one person on this side of the group says, "Wait a minute, wasn't she late last week and again today?" I'm glad they brought it up because that saved me from being the bad guy, right? So they brought it up. Well, she launches into this story about, "Oh, but it's not my fault. My mom was late picking me up and she had to work and it was really important that she works, and so she was late picking me up and that's why I was late for group." Okay, pause again because I want to give you the context for why she was in the group in the first place. She had broken some laws in Las Vegas, Nevada. Okay, the group was being run right here in my office in Orem, Utah. She had broken some laws in Las Vegas, Nevada. It wasn't her mom that gave her a ride to Las Vegas. Her home is maybe a mile from the office. Honestly, what is she asking us to believe? That she can't get herself to group on time, but she can get herself to another state to commit a crime? Do you see the disconnect? What is this young lady capable of? And yet, when we get into a codependent relationship, we start to believe that that person cannot do it without us. Honestly, what are they asking us to believe? Consider this. They were resourceful enough to not only recruit you, but to train you to provide for all of those needs. That's pretty darn resourceful. What else could they do if we were to set the appropriate boundaries around that? Now that's simple, but it's not easy. And it's not easy because our emotions get involved. So you might need a coach or someone to help you see the clarity of the situation, because when you get into that relationship, it can be kind of blinding and it doesn't feel like there's any way out. I have a basic fundamental belief that human beings are enormously resourceful. And even those who are, we might call them disabled or addicted or whatever, okay? It's not about what you can't do, it's about what you can do. So your focus on that will help to put you in a position where you can actually help them more and probably break that pattern of codependency. So to wrap this up, here's the short version. Refrain from rescuing. And that is hard to do because they make a compelling argument for the rescue. But we need to refrain from rescuing because that's what empowers them to turn on that brain, that resourceful brain that they have, so that they can step up and actually find some of their own answers to that. Sometimes we call it tough love. And there's a reason why we call it tough, because it's not easy. Simple and easy are not the same thing. Hopefully this little conversation about codependency and what it is might shed a little bit of light on what you can do next to move forward in breaking those patterns. You know what? People are more resourceful than we know. And I think believing that about them really serves them and us well. I'll see you tomorrow at Live on Purpose TV.